What's going on, YouTube? Back here with another Blu-ray review. This time we're stepping outside of horror and digging into some spaghetti western action. And it is a beast of a box set that Era put out, and I had a blast sitting through this thing. Spoiler alert, sorry, now you don't have to watch the video. But it is a series featuring multiple directors, writers, musicians, actors, etc., but it is unified, at least via one character, and his name is Sartana. We're talking about the complete Sartana. I kind of came into this like backwards and sideways because I had seen Frank Kramer, Gianfranco Parolini's other films in the Sabata series, which was kind of a very similar-ish character, at least. Lee Van Cleef and Yul Brynner portrayed him. And William Berger, who's also in the first Sartana film here in this box set, is in those as well. And yeah, it's got a similar kind of tone. And I loved those things. I had no idea about that there was the Sartana series, which came already. And apparently there was a film that came before these. Gianni Garko, who portrays Sartana in 4 out of the 5 films in this series, apparently portrayed Sartana in another film, but totally different characterization, called $1 Million Sul Nero, and he was more of a villain in that. But then that made them kind of reimagine the character as this anti-hero in the vein of Clint Eastwood's Drifter from the Sergio Leone films, and a couple other things mixed in there. There's definitely some James Bond in there, and other like almost like a bit of The Shadow too at times. The character's very malleable, and he changes, and his kind of trademarks evolve over the series or devolve over the series. Is just kind of whatever they need at the time. He's more of like a magician in one film. He's addicted to hard-boiled eggs in another film. He's got a little tiny like 4-shooter like gun that he keeps concealed, and yeah, he's got all these little kind of like Sartana-isms, and he's got a cool like cape cloak thing. But yeah, the first film in the series, If You Meet Sartana, Pray for Your Death, involves Gianni Garko. He usually always kind of like sidles into these stories, almost like Mad Max-esque, and he falls into this story of, it's usually always involving gold or missing gold or something like that. This one's got lots of Wells Fargo men being gunned down and stagecoaches being robbed, etc., and money missing coming out of this one particular town, and he just kind of casually interacts with people, not because he's out for any vendetta or out for any kind of righteousness or anything. It's just he's there on the scene. Klaus Kinski is also in it. It's a kind of, most of the plots are pretty labyrinthine, with characters double, triple, quadruple crossing one another, and there's usually some sort of thick conspiracy at the heart of it. But yeah, he rolls into town and meets all the characters. There's a Mexican general involved, and bankers and other shady businessmen. Sidney Chaplin, son of Charlie Chaplin, is in the film as well. Franco Pesce also appears for the first time. He's this old man character here playing Dusty, and he reappears throughout most of the films, usually as some sort of variation or an undertaker or wacky old man. So yeah, that's cool. And William Berger is just out of this world crazy. He looks like a stop-motion animated Rankin Bass character from one of their holiday animated series, but come to life. And he's just so crazy and over the top. There's a scene where he like thinks he's dynamited a bunch of people, and he just does this goofy like victorious dance out in the middle of the front yard. And yeah, he's just hamming it up like he does in Sabata as well. So yeah, but he's definitely watchable, that's for sure. And yeah, Sartana's just a badass. It looks good, great. It's the one film in the series though that is not in 2.35:1, but that said, it's got a lot of good color, the nighttime scenes, etc. The print is relatively damaged at times, but it's got a cool vibe to it, and you could definitely see what Parolini took from this and brought into the Sabata series. fun flick. So then that came out in 1968, and then from there on, all these films just like shot out in succession. 1969 saw I Am Sartana, Your Angel of Death, and then there were 3 films in 1970, and you can decide who to believe as to which one is the first and the last, etc. But in the terms of this set that I was given, the order is Have a Good Funeral, My Friend, Sartana Will Pay, from 1970, then Light the Fuse, Sartana Is Coming, and then Sartana's Here, Trade Your Pistol for a Coffin. Love the titles, in keeping with all of the other spaghetti western films, and Sartana ends up becoming one of those characters that was reused and used outside of the official series and canon films. So eventually, the Sartana and Django and Sabata became like the universal monsters for other films. Like people would just be like, Frankenstein's in town. So they were just kind of turned into like public domain kind of mythical characters, and they would use them or just say their names even if they didn't have any real kind of textual connection to this original series. But after Paolini left, Giuliano Carnameo came on and directed the rest of the films, and they're in 2.35:1, and they're gorgeous. Love the look of them. Some of the later films opened up a little bit. I know on the commentary track we'll get to later, one of the commentators was very dismissive of the lack of shooting locations. A lot of the films weren't shot in Spain; they were shot in backlots in outside of Rome and Italy, and they just look like mining facilities or something. I don't know. My suspension of disbelief is at a level where I can watch them and totally buy into it. I don't need to see the rolling open vistas and stuff. I just buy into it. But that said, they do kind of get a little bit more epic as the films progress. But I Am Sartana, Your Angel of Death also has Klaus Kinski in it, and it has this twisted tale of a bank robbery in which Sartana is taking part, and now he's cast as a bit of a villain. And obviously, if you have any mixture of Sartana's favorite playthings and his dress, etc., you could just dress up as him. So obviously, Sartana's not really the bad guy this time around, but he does want to find out who's been going around impersonating him, and now there's a price on his head, so even some of his old friends are out to kill him. Klaus Kinski is even a little more interesting in this film, his character is, than the previous film, and though his the score has his theme song like almost like identical to Santa Claus is Coming to Town, it only changes in like the last bit of the phrasing. So you're like, Santa Claus Kinski is coming to town. So yeah, you have to kind of push that aside in the corner of your brain. Yeah, again, a lot of labyrinthine plots and different characters out to get Sartana and frame him, etc. And Gianni Garko is great in it. This one does change the character up a little bit more. They play him off more as this magician character, lots of card tricks and magic. And even it has this interesting like opening title sequence, which is very, very colorful, and it's all about Sartana using his magic tricks and stuff like that. So Sartana the magician is definitely more at the forefront of this film, and he even has like another kind of like over the top scene where when he goes to the town of Poker Falls, there's this crazy like montage of the bright signs, Vegas-esque signs of Poker Falls, being superimposed over the the montage scenery of all the gambling locales, etc. And then there's also a great piece where pretty much the entire town is out to kill Sartana. He's got luckily they're all really, really bad shots, and he's running around the rooftops, etc., trying to evade them all and trick them and kill them. Cool action scenes. The third film, or at least third in the context of how it was organized in my box set, was Sartana's Here, Trade Your Pistol for a Coffin, in which George Hilton is now playing Sartana. And if Johnny Garko was the Sean Connery of this series, George Hilton is Roger Moore and George Lazenby kind of rolled into one. He's a Uruguayan actor, and he settled into this role. He's definitely got he's got charisma, but it's a different kind of brand of charisma than Johnny Garko did. And Johnny Garko is closer to the Clint Eastwood kind of cut of hero. And the Roger Moore thing kind of like he's definitely comes to mind because this Sartana is like a little bit more winking and just having fun with it. And like there's even a scene early on where he douses some dynamite that's about to blow up a wagon by throwing his canteen and then shooting it while it's hovering over the area where the dynamite is, and he just kind of looks at the camera and is like, yeah. So it's pretty cheesy stuff, but it's got a lot of really great characters in this one. Erica Blank's in it, and there's a couple of Joe and Flint are these kind of hired guns that roll into town, and they're like, kind of like Kid and Wint from Diamonds Are Forever in a way. I don't know why they reminded me of them, but they did, and they just kind of roll into town and take it over. They're super sweaty and nasty looking, and they just have a little bit of an interaction with the bar where a lot of the saloon where a lot of the film takes place. And yeah, it's got a lot of fun stuff with these bandits led by a guy named Montes, and he's fun, and Sartana's got a kind of right-hand man through a lot of this film. So different vibe, but yeah, really watchable. Carnamayo's work is great, and the framing is gorgeous. Gianni Garko is definitely my favorite Sartana, but yeah, George Hilton definitely acquits himself admirably. Then Have a Good Funeral, My Friend, Sartana Will Pay. It's funny because if you read it the wrong way, you'll think it's like, oh, Sartana killed your friend, and you're like, have a good funeral, my friend, and know that Sartana will pay for your death. But no, Sartana actually rolls around paying for people's funerals. Frank Pesce also shows up again as the Undertaker character, and yeah, he knows he's going to get some good coin for like high quality funerals. It's kind of this like little dig when Sartana kills people. He pays to have them receive these lavish funerals with lots of flowers and stuff. It's kind of like a little middle finger to the rest of the guys out there. It's probably my favorite in the series. It's got a lot of fun. It's got a lot of night shots with a lot of great color. It's got this homesteader who's been murdered by these toughs, and then his daughter rolls into town, played by Daniela Giordano, who's probably my favorite Sartana girl out of this whole series as well. And George Wang plays the owner of this casino that is largely the centerpiece of the whole story. He's just a fun character, and everything that's going on. The only weird thing is that Gianni Garko now returns after determining that his blondness shouldn't have been hidden, in the earlier films. According to some friends and co-workers of his, he decided to go on full blonde, and he comes out in this film looking like Gianni Garko wearing a fake blonde mustache and a hairpiece, but it's actually his natural color. So it's weird. It's really hard to get over. And the film where it stands out the most is this one. But yeah, so once you get over that, though, I mean, the story's just, again, the usual kind of bit of, this time there's some land. Of course, the daughter of the murdered man is coming into town, and whether or not she's going to, sell the land to the highest bidder, and whether there's something valuable there going on. So there's that whole thing. Super complicated as all times, and Sartana's getting involved and changing the stakes. It's a really fun film. Then Light the Fuse, Sartana is Coming is another gorgeous one. Bruno Nicolai also did the music on the last two in the series. This one in particular has the most kind of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly sounding score. He worked a lot with Ennio Morricone, and apparently did some kind of like ghost scoring for Ennio Morricone when Morricone was too busy or something like that. So it's definitely got the sound of the Leone westerns. Again, 2.35 to 1, gorgeous stuff. Carnamayo doing some great directing, and all these films have the great whip pans and the zooms and the aggressive, hyper creative framing and camera movements that you love from spaghetti westerns. And then just the creative kills and everything like that. I've watched the Sabata films, and like the guy pulling guns out of banjos and stuff, the sort of things. If you ever seen Robert Rodriguez's Desperado, that sort of like inventiveness is what you get from all these spaghetti westerns. There's a great musical interlude at the end of this film that's nuts, and there's a organ solo that is just killer. Every time I think I've seen it all, I watch one of these films, and I'm like, oh, come on, that's crazy. It's just totally outrageous and super fun. Gianni Garko, again, back as Sartana in this film. He is blonde again, but it's a little tamed down. He doesn't look like he's wearing a fake mustache and a wig like he did in the last film. And this one's got, him running afoul of some lawmen, and there's a mining situation going on. This has a super cool, he's not quite a robot, but we'll go ahead and say he's a robot. He's like this little like tiki god looking dude that's basically a little tiny robot that gets involved in the film. So yeah, it's kind of like the idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark, if that was like motorized and kind of cruised along and had guns inside and things like that. Usual thing, he gets involved in a super complicated plot and missing gold, as there always is. The finale of this film is great. Once Sartana figures it out, Sartana he always like figures things out and ends up like stealing stuff and taking things for himself. And I know in one of the earlier films, his cohort's like, hey, we just like pocketed the dough, and he's like, yeah, it's cool, man. Sartana, I always pocket the dough. So he's got to be pretty rich by now. So yeah, the bad guy, he looks like an evil Brian Posehn. You got you got a tiki robot. What more do you want? It's really, really fun stuff. By the time I got through the end of these, I wish there was another box set of 5 more. So yeah, loved them. Visually, these things were mastered well. When there's print damage, there is some print damage. The first film has some lines running down the screen. Nothing that intrusive, though, that it destroys the flow of the narrative. And if anything, it just kind of lends it a grindhouse cinema feel. Not so bad where there's like pops in the audio and missing scenes or anything like that. But yeah, it just gives it a little bit of a vintage 70s cinema feel. The later films start to look a little bit cleaner. There's errant hairs in the gates, that sort of thing. But it's usually the first one that's a little bit rougher in terms of print damage and lines on the screen, etc. Nothing that's a deal breaker though. There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of colorful bits of mostly wardrobe, etc., because obviously it's a dusty, brownish kind of spaghetti western land for the rest of the visuals. But yeah, there are those moments. Sometimes the casinos have a lot of bits of color thrown around in them. Looks really, really nice. The audio is, it says it's got PCM, at least on my press release, because I don't have the finished package. I got like a pre-production release. It says it's got a PCM uncompressed mono, but everything on here is DTS HD Master Audio mono. There's an English dub and the original Italian, both mono for each of the films, and it varies from film to film, like which one's better. Like in the first one, the Italian is a little bit fuller sounding. The American, the English track has, the characters sounding a little bit more like Western stereotypes, so you get that going. I just watched the Italian as a default overall for all of them. On the second film, the English audio is a little brighter and clearer. And then on the third film, the dialogue is like a little louder in English, but the music is about the same. Sometimes the music is like a little more shrill, usually in the English track, whereas it's a little bit beefier and not quite as aggressive on the top end, because there's a lot of those, those horns and stuff. A lot of that top end is kind of compressed and can get tinny, and of course the sounds of the gunshots, the canned gunshots, have this kind of high end to them that gets a little weird at times. And then the fourth film, they both are a little bit sibilant at times, but about equal. And then in the last film, the English audio is more kind of muted and compressed sounding, and the Italian is more open. So I got no problems with just watching the Italian as a rule across the board. And obviously there's subtitles available for all of them. And so I mean, it sounded coming out of my center speaker like you'd imagine. Sometimes fidelity is a little thin, but sounded great. Again, like I was in an old theater house in the 70s. So special features are pretty comprehensive. You're talking about a 5-disc box set, so even if each movie only has, a handful of featurettes, which they for the most part do, and only 3 of the films have commentary tracks, still collectively it's a decent amount of material. So the first film, If You Meet Sartana, Pray for Your Death, features a commentary track from Mike Siegel, who is cool. Like, he's definitely super knowledgeable about spaghetti westerns in general, and just has an insane love for the films. But then again, he does mention, and there's that caveat that he used to be even worse in his younger age about films that were Italian westerns but were not shot in the open vistas of Spain. And so he definitely used to hold it against any film that was shot outside the vicinity of Rome and used old mining locations, etc. He always says he's expecting to see a dump truck or something roll by any second. That said, at the time of recording this commentary, he seemed to have kind of mellowed out a little bit on that. But he does harp on that quite a bit. And also, he lets you know that this isn't his favorite film in the series. So I know that's got to be a bummer sometimes if you're a film historian and you get asked to do a commentary and a box set of the film that's not your favorite. You got to draw straws, I guess, or something like that. But that said, he likes the film enough, and just point out some of the moments in the films, and a bunch of them where it kind of treads closer to horror film territory in terms of the lighting and the look of the film, and he'll let you know all about the characters and the actors and the histories behind them. You're very knowledgeable thing, and he talks a ton about $1 Million sul Nero, the film that features Sartana originally. He talks about that almost like it's the commentary for that film in the beginning of this. So you're going to learn a lot about the history of Sartana going into it. Other things, featurette-wise, there's If You Meet Frank Kramer, which is an interview with Gianfranco Parolini talking about the film, and he's just a delightful character. You sit with him in this house for about 22 minutes, and he tells you everything about this film and just kind of his life in general and other films, and even gets giddy at some of the cool moments in the first Sabata film with Lee Van Cleef. Again, one of my favorite parts in that too, so I can understand his giddiness. So that was a cool piece. The second featurette is Light the Fuse, Sartana's casting, which I actually went back and watched later because I wanted to see all the films first. But Jonathan Bygraves put it together. It's 16 minutes and 43 seconds roughly, and it talks about all the actors involved in the Sartana series. So that one you don't want to watch right away. Save that for a little bit later, because you're going to want to see the George Hilton film first. And then there's an image gallery on each of the films. The first one's got about 28 images. It's from Mike Siegel's personal collection. So lots of cool German posters, etc. He notes that a lot of these films have French connections for financing and German connections, and talks about these films were very popular in Germany, etc. So he definitely has a cool collection of posters that he doesn't mind showing with us. On I Am Sartana, Your Angel of Death, you get a commentary from C. Courtney Joyner and Henry Park, and unlike the new commentary from The Last House on the Left set, where the commentators were just waiting to talk over each other, this is great. You have people that are friendly and have information, but they're not trying to out-inform one another, and they're actually listening to one another and interacting, and it seems like you're listening to a cool podcast or something like that. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Both of the commentaries they did were good. Then there was From the Life of a Stuntman, a 24-minute interview with Sal Borghese. Again, talking not just about the films in particular, but about his life and acting and doing stunts, etc. He also shows up in one of the later films because he plays multiple parts across the whole Sartana spectrum. Then there's Violent Tales for Kids, a 19-minute Ernesto Gastaldi piece, who talks about writing the films. And again, it's more of a biographical interview overall. He also appears on one of the later films as well, so if you want to hear more of him talking, you're going to be happy. And then there's another gallery of posters, about 30 images or so. From Sartana's here, Trade Your Pistol for Her Coffin, you get Sartana Shoots First, which is an interview with George Hilton, and that's about 20 minutes. It was cool. He looks, super healthy, etc., and gives a good conversation. Then there's Lady Colt, about a half an hour interview with Erica Blank, and that was cool. I liked just the framing of the interview, because a lot of these are just talking head interviews. But she's got this kind of fuzzy cashmere-esque kind of white sweater thing on, but her the couch she's on is peppered with these bright kind of purples and pastels and interesting colors that just pop. And then there's like a classical nylon string guitar leaning up against the wall, but it's very structured and it seems like it's done for the sake of the visuals of the interview, but yeah, it pays off. It's really cool looking. And yeah, Erica Blank's great. She's fun to listen to her tell stories. In The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, another Arrow release, there was some good stuff with her on there too. So if you're a fan, definitely seek that out. Then there's a very good job 15-minute interview with a talent agent and sometimes actor Tony Askin, and he's got almost like a very calm, serene, like ASMR-esque tone to his voice. Really good stuff. It almost looks interesting because it looks like he's been trapped in a corner, but he's got like desk material around him, like he's got no room to move. It's almost like someone dropped him into this corner. Yeah, but it was cool. I liked his, and again, I feel like Bob Ross, videos, not as calm as that, but very very measured speaking, and yeah, that was a fun one to watch. But if you're into ASMR and stuff, try not to fall asleep. And then there's another 22 image bit of gallery of posters, etc. For Have a Good Funeral, My Friend, Sartana Will Pay, there's yet another C. Courtney Joyner and Henry Park commentary. They're having a blast because this is their favorite film of the series as well, and they're going to let you know it. But again, they're not talking over each other at all times. They're not just spouting out information left and right in a vomitous stream of details. It's a really nice commentary track to listen to. Then there's The Man Who Came from the Circus, a 22-minute interview with Robert Dell'Acqua, another cool character telling not just the history of acting on the film, but his history obviously within the circus and getting roles in films and involvement eventually in the Sartana series as well. And then there's a 21-image gallery on that disc. And on Light the Fuse, Sartana is Coming. There's no commentary track, but you do get another interview with Sal Borghese. That one's about 22 minutes. And then another interview with Ernesto Gastaldi. This one's called Giuliano, Luciano, and Me. Another 20-minute, roughly, interview. And then Sartana Lives, an archival featurette. This one's cool because it's interviews with Gianni Garko, who looks fantastic, and director Giuliano Carnemeo. So if you've been waiting to see the director talking about these films, you got to wait to the last one to check that out. Really cool stuff. That one's about 24 minutes or so. And then again, another still gallery of Mike Siegel's poster collection, maybe 20 images or so. I wish I had the original packaging, but it does come with limited edition packaging, reversible sleeves featuring original artwork for all of them, and then some newly commissioned artwork from Matt Griffin. And then there's a collector's booklet, illustrated, of course, and featuring new ratings on the films from Roberto Curti and an extensive spaghetti western timeline by Howard Hughes as well, which is pretty cool. The one thing that's listed on the sheet, but I did not find, it's supposed to be on If You Meet Sartana, Pray for Your Death. There's supposed to be an interview with the writer Fabio Piccioni, and that's not on my disc, at least. Hopefully that made it onto the final production versions, maybe? We'll see. Or maybe they just got kicked off the special features altogether. The new 2K restorations of the films, the subtitles were newly translated, so that's pretty cool. Again, the PCM audio listed on my sheet of information is incorrect. It's actually DTS HD Master Audio 1.0 for both English and Italian languages. And supposedly they only made 2,500 copies of this. But yeah, I mean, the films went, the Arrow went back to the original negatives and made 2K restorations, so kudos to them for putting this together. It's the box set I didn't even know I wanted until I got it. And if you're a fan of the Sergio Leone Man with No Name trilogy type stuff, any of that, and of course the Sabata films and beyond, you're going to want to check these out if you haven't seen them already. And of course the Django films, these definitely fit in nicely with all of that, and I'm super psyched I have them. Johnny Garko is great. The George Hilton film is good too, especially because of the supporting cast. And there's a lot of fun stuff that happens in that one. I'll watch these again in a heartbeat, and I'm sure I will be watching them repeatedly, and they look fantastic on Blu-ray. So if you're into spaghetti westerns, this one's definitely a no-brainer. So thanks for hanging out and sitting through this mighty beast of a 5-disc set review. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers. Peace.